Okay, for this video we're gonna have some fun. I'm gonna talk about the Yakuza characters I find the ugliest to look at. There really isn't anything else I have to tell you, so let's get straight to it. We're going to start from the least ugly, then work our way up to the most ugly. Let's go! Kume. If you factor in this character's personality into your ranking, he would probably be the most ugly Yakuza character. But for this video, we're obviously focusing on looks first and foremost. And yeah, just look at this dude. He has one of the most punchable faces ever. His less than savory looks represent his obnoxious personality very well. But yeah, if I'm being honest, his personality did play a huge part in my decision to include him in this video. His voice is extremely annoying and grating.
見ましたか皆さん、チンピラの本性がむき出した。未だに暴力で市民の声を封じることができると思い込んでいる。
And just judging by how rapacious he is, his hygiene is probably horrible too. So much so that his breath probably stinks. Like, I don't know if it's just me, but he looks like the kind of guy to have shit stains on his underwear, who then tries to hide that fact by spraying Axe deodorant into his ass crack. The only good thing about his looks is the fact that if he were to ever use a dating app, it would be extremely difficult for him to hide his revolting personality, because his face is exactly that. Revolting. Kanda. Another character who's mainly here because of his personality.
19時からと聞いてます。よっしゃー！おら！おら！おら！おら！おら！おら！
He is the definition of obnoxious and gross. And he looks like he doesn't shower. It's a shame this dude ended up being the last person to lead the Nishikiyama family. Talk about pissing on someone's grave. Sugai. Another guy with an extremely punchable face. As soon as this character is introduced, just judging by how his face looks, you know he's going to be a villain. Yes, he is later revealed to be a villain, but he's not initially introduced as one. He's just got that grim, conniving look, especially when he smiles. And just like Kume, at least he can't fool anyone about his true nature because his face reveals it. He's also easily one of the most pathetic Yakuza characters because he's an almost perfect example of all bark, no bite, making his underlings fight his battles for him. And when he's finally put to task, well, at least the trash takes itself out.
短い夢だったか。
Katsuragi. Mr. Japanese Professor Snape here also has an extremely punchable face. And keeping in mind the role he plays in Yakuza 4's story, it's hard not to throw your fist at the TV. Okay, so this dude is just plain ugly, like the opposite of conventionally attractive. Why is his mouth so big? And that haircut really isn't doing him any favors, looking like that one character from Madagascar 2. He looks like that one family member who you would dread visiting every time you had to come over to his house because he liked kissing you on the cheek every time you said hello to each other, and you hated it because his breath smelled horrible. I hope that doesn't sound oddly specific. Horunuichi. I don't know if it's just me, but he looks like the type of dude to masturbate in public. Shimano. Yeah, I made a whole ass video about him, but I had to include him in this video. I mean, look at him! His face is fucking weird, man! Kanai. Yeah, do I really need to explain why this guy is ugly? The only reason he isn't number 1 is because the guy who's actually at number 1 has a slightly more fucked up face. And that brings us to Lao Gui. Yeah, it's obvious that the choice to make him ugly was intentional. He's a silent, cold-blooded assassin, so it checks out that he looks like this. And yeah, that pretty much ends this video. Those are the ugliest Yakuza characters, at least in my opinion. There's nothing else to say. Thanks for watching, and remember to like and subscribe. Hi. So, I've done a little bit of research, and apparently if you appear on camera more, your audience can connect with you more because, like, you know, they're actually seeing your face. So get ready to see my face a little bit more. I hope that isn't bad news. Jokes aside, if you're a subscriber, I hope you didn't fall for that because there's obviously a lot more I have to say about this topic. If you're still watching this video at this point, it's either 1 or 2. One, you know that on this channel we like to overthink and dig deeper into topics that don't really seem that deep on the surface. Two, I was still able to keep your attention despite the swindle. So if you're interested in the deeper implications surrounding ugly characters in Yakuza, well then continue watching and also hit that subscribe button if you like overthinking. So as you saw earlier in this video, there are quite a few Yakuza characters that could be considered ugly or not conventionally attractive. And I think what's really interesting about those characters is the fact that you can kind of link why those particular characters are ugly to Japanese beauty standards in general and their implications. In other words, you can kind of glean what Japanese beauty standards actually are, the sorts of features that are considered ugly, the sorts of features that are considered repulsive. We can kind of glean all of that by analyzing why certain Yakuza characters look ugly and what types of characters are likely to be designed as ugly. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. But first, let's establish what these beauty standards are for men specifically. So most, if not all, of the ugly characters in the Yakuza series are male. So the question we must ask is this: what makes a man unattractive and attractive? Well, let's go to Google and type in the most attractive men. Let's see what results we find. Okay, let's click on this Harper's Bazaar article. Okay, James Dean at number 1. Marlon Brando at number 2. Elvis Presley at number 6. Robert Redford at number 8. Brad Pitt at number 14. Ryan Gosling at 29. Okay, I think we kind of have an idea of what the trend is here. The chiseled jawlines, the muscular stature, some facial hair but not too much, mostly white men with some exceptions. Yeah, these are the beauty standards the West sets for men. Now, what about the East? Well, let's just say that saying it's a little bit different would be an understatement. In the West, we see that the beauty standard for men was very brawny and masculinized. In countries like Japan, it's the opposite, but not the complete opposite. For a case study, we'll look at male idol groups. If you don't know what a Japanese idol is, well, basically it's the Japanese equivalent to Britney Spears, Mandy Moore, the Backstreet Boys, or really any of the most outwardly manufactured, meticulously tailored for certain demographic pop stars. The specific male idol group we'll look at is Arashi. As you can see, this group is what you would probably describe as pretty boys. No facial hair whatsoever, their bodies are more slender and less broad compared to the Robert Redfords and Ryan Gosling types. So basically, the Japanese like pretty boys. Okay, that's more than a bit of an oversimplification. Upon doing further research, I came across a section of an academic book called The Routledge Companion to Gender and Japanese Culture on the website ResearchGate. This specific section of this book was titled The Continuum of Male Beauty in Contemporary Japan, and it basically examined exactly what we're examining in this video, male beauty standards. And after reading it myself, I'd say that I got a better idea of how male beauty is viewed in Japan. Now, I'm gonna quote a few parts from the book throughout this video from here on out, so keep that in mind. And the full article is obviously linked below if you're interested in reading the full thing. Okay, let's go. Quote, "While there is more than one type of male body that exists in the cultural imagination in Japan, a slender and smooth male body has dominated as an aesthetically pleasing example. These slender male bodies, with their display of boyish charm, allow Japanese men to deny mature masculinity while remaining masculine." End quote. So yeah, Japanese people, according to this article at least, tend to prefer their men looking just a little bit less masculine. The mature masculinity the author is referring to is an image of masculinity that both men and women in Japan have negative feelings towards. A good example of this mature masculinity would be the salaryman archetype. An archetype that describes a type of white-collar worker that became prevalent during the early stages of Japan's industrialization in the early 1900s. In Japanese society, the salaryman is thought to be an acquiescent workaholic loyal to the corporation he has to work for most of his life. He works long hours and overtime, sometimes without pay. He has an inclination for alcohol and cigarettes. That basically describes the salaryman. Now, why do Japanese people generally have negative feelings towards the salaryman? Well, Quote, "The popularity of youthful male beauty has been read by some as a refusal by young men to embrace the traditional masculine values of the salaryman. Despite some stylish, nice-looking salarymen existing in reality, in the collective consciousness, the middle-aged, mid-level corporate salaryman has been associated with a somewhat dowdy, hegemonic masculinity in post-Pacific War Japan. The salaryman aesthetically symbolized a rather unattractive, undesirable, authoritarian mode of mature masculinity. The adoption of a youthful-looking, stylish, non-threatening masculinity by young men, and significantly its appreciation by a large number of females, is seen by some as a delicate revolt against what has become a social stereotype." End quote. So, Japanese people very much value being young and youthfulness, because youth is not associated with the laborious work culture that serves as a breeding ground for a certain type of adult. The road to adulthood is one that many Japanese kids dread. Nonetheless, to bring it back to Yakuza, most of the characters who I, and probably many others, consider ugly tend to be of an older age. Sugai, Horunuichi, Shimano, and Kanai can probably be described as salarymen, especially Horunuichi, who was portrayed as a very authoritarian figure in Yakuza Like a Dragon. I mean, he was the guy who literally spearheaded the Kamurocho 3K plan, which is basically Yakuza's version of the real-life American 1994 crime bill. If you know, you know. If you don't, let me put it this way, it was basically the war on drugs in Kamurocho, but replaced drugs with Yakuza.
東京都知事が町の浄化運動を始めて、次々に東上会の資金源をピンポイントで潰して回った。名付けてカムロ町 3K 作戦。3K 作戦?
Anyway, I think you get the point. It's no surprise that a very authoritarian figure like Horunuichi is on the uglier side when it comes to looks. The same thing applies to Sugai, who was a temporary acting chairman of the Tojo clan, with an ulterior motive. That ulterior motive being taking full control of the Tojo clan and ousting all potential opposition with some help from other criminal syndicates. At least that's what I remember it being. Forgive me if that's an incorrect recollection of Sugai's motives in Yakuza 6. It, like most Yakuza games, had a very convoluted-ass story. Anyway, in the process of achieving his goals, whatever they were, he kidnaps Kiryu's adoptive daughter and his grandson, holding them at gunpoint. Yeah, it's no surprise that he is ugly as fuck in looks, because he's definitely ugly as fuck on the inside. I guess you could call him an evil salaryman. Now, what about the other Yakuza characters I, and probably many others, consider ugly? Well, the reason why the international version of Lao Gui's design is ugly is pretty obvious. He's supposed to be a scary silent assassin. There really isn't any sort of deep analysis you can do regarding his ugliness. Someone like him is supposed to look ugly and scary. Now, Kanda, on the other hand, well, he's fat. Now, I'm not saying that's the reason I find him ugly. I clearly stated that it's because of his personality. But that's probably the reason why a lot of other people find him ugly, because being overweight is a trait generally considered to be unattractive in both the West and the East. Now, regarding the rest of the characters I consider ugly, well, let's just say my choice to label them ugly was highly opinionated. A lot of people probably don't consider Katsuragi and Kume ugly. Kume actually looks like the kind of dude a lot of Japanese people would appreciate, at least according to that article. He's no J-pop idol, but he looks very young for his age. That's all I have to say for this video. I hope you learned something today, because I certainly did when I did my research for this video. And it was my intention to include a little bit of education in this fun little video. Nonetheless, you can also tell me if you agree with my picks or not in the comments, obviously. And I apologize for the cliche, but don't forget to tap that like button and tap that subscribe button too. Honestly, the button I'd like you to tap the most is the subscribe button. So if both are too much for you, just tap the subscribe button, because you don't want to miss the next video about the Yakuza series specifically. I won't spoil it, but I'll give you a hint. It has to do with sub-stories. So stay tuned!